All right, guys, let's go ahead and look at this problem you have in front of you. If we look at this problem, you have x's and y's. You know what to do. It says model or write the equation of what you see here. So the first thing you do, you know this. We actually had this one, I believe, this week in one of our Desmos. So some of these problems may look familiar, but I still want you to be able to do this. So what is the slope from this problem? Go ahead and solve that for me. And you know the formula, like you probably getting sick of it at this point, is the slope, okay? And when you do that, you're going to get 5 minus 9, 0 minus 1. You get negative 4 and negative 1, which equals positive 4. So that is your slope, positive 4. Now what are we going to do? Now I'm going to ask you, what is the y-intercept? What is the y-intercept? So how do you figure out the y-intercept? The y-intercept is what's going to go here. So what should go there? If you're lost, remember we got to plug stuff in. You can take the first point, plug in 0 here, 5 here. Does 5 equal 4 times 0, which is 0? Does 5 equal 0? No, finish the puzzle. How do we get it to be 5 equals 5? We would have to, then that would work, right? 5 equals 5. So we're going to have to add 5. So the y-intercept would be 5. So that would be your entire equation. Y equals 4x plus 5. All right? All right, next problem. If I look at this properly, I got to look at this and see, okay, what is the slope is what I'm going to ask you. What is the slope? If I asked you what the slope was, you should be able to take a coordinate, any of these coordinates, and you're going to rise and run, okay? These all have the same slope. Basically, the slope is your stairwell. What is the rate of change? What's the change that's happening, okay? So as you keep solving this, some people are going to get this wrong because they're going to say it's up 1 and it's over 2. Because when you look at that, that's what it kind of looks like, right? Up 1 over 2, that is not correct. It is up 1. I do see that. It is up 1, okay? But when I go to the right, that's not 2 spaces. It is 2 units, but what are my units going by? Look at this. From here to here, that is not 2. That ends up being 3 and 6. The units are going by 3s. So your slope should be up 1 over 6. Now let me ask you this. Where is your y-intercept? Where does it touch the y-axis? Do you see it? It's at 0, okay? So if you were to go ahead and your y-intercept's right here. If you were to write out this equation, this is what it would look like. Y equals 1 over 6x plus 0. But guess what? You don't even need to write the 0. So that could just look like this. This is a perfectly fine linear equation. All it means is you start at 0, you go up 1 over 6. Up 1 over 6, okay? You got this. All right, now I'm going to ask you, what is the slope in this problem? Let me go to this problem here. What is the slope here, okay? So what's the slope here? And when I ask you the slope, again, we know it's rise and run. We're going to rise and we're going to run, all right? We know the y-intercept's at 0, okay? But we're going to rise 10. Do you see that's 10? And what are we going to run? You see it? We're going to rise 10, run 10. So what's my slope? 10 over 10. That would be correct. That is my slope. Up 10 over 10. But what can we do to make it look prettier? Can we cancel this out? So really, is it just 1 over 1? So my slope becomes 1. All right? Oh, that could have been neater. All right? So you have to remember, you can always reduce the fraction. You can always reduce the fraction, guys. All right, you guys. Now, who can give me this work here? So I want to ask you right now, what is the slope and what is the y-intercept? When it says input, that means x. Output means y, okay? Now, let's go ahead and talk about what to do here. You go ahead and give me the slope. All right, my slope was 2. Now, what's the y-intercept? If my slope is 2, let's plug these in. I'm going to choose the first coordinate. 1 goes here, 11 goes here. Does 11 equal 2? Nope. How do I get it to be 11 equals 11? What must I add to 2? Right, and there's your final answer. There's your entire equation. And you guys can do this. You're going to have to do this on your benchmark where there will be a table and it'll compare it to another equation. There would be like an equation like this, a different one, and then there would be a table. And they would start asking you questions about either one of them, saying which one has a larger slope. And we've been doing problems like that, okay? All right, let's keep rocking. Let's keep rolling. All right, now take a look at this one. If I told you to go ahead and give me the equation, all right? And what's super crummy about this stinking thing is that these units aren't shown because the formatting, whenever I do a screenshot, it messes it up. But let me just tell you right now, this is going to be 1. And then this is 2. And then this is 3. So the units are going by half. And that's going to happen sometimes. So it's almost good that this happened so I can just talk to you again about what these units are going by. So you always have to examine what the units are going by. You can never assume, oh, it's just going by 1s. Because look at your y values. They are not going by 1s, all right? They are going by 8s. So what's the slope here? This is a point here, okay? And here's a point. What's the slope? First, you got to give me this, right? And then you have to give me the y-intercept. Where does it cross the y-axis, all right? First of all, what's the slope? All right? And then give me the full equation. So I'll go ahead and help you with the slope. The first part, we're going to rise and we're going to run. All right, what are we rising? 8. You see it goes from 8 to 16? So my slope is 8. Okay? What's my y-intercept? Oh, we went to 8, but then I forgot to explain to you. We're going over 2 units, but what are my units going by? Halves. So actually 2 units means 1 whole. Okay, so it's 8 over 1. And then where does it cross the y-intercept? 8. See where it touches the y? Right here? At the 8. All right, guys. Good job. All right. So now let's look at this. What is the slope of this graph? We know it's actually going, can you tell that it's going down? So if I asked you what the slope was, you know your answer will have one of these guys. Because what kind of slope is it? It's a negative slope, all right? You know that. So let's make sure we do that properly. Now, the slope, let's talk about this and make it bigger. We're going to start here. We know that's a point. But guys, you have to be detectives here. As I go down this slope, that is not a point. That is not a point. That looks like it could be close to 1, but it is not exact. Exact would be up a little bit right there, okay? This is a point, and you have to be super precise. All right, if you kept going down, this is also a point here. But since you found this one, you can use that one. And let's go ahead and find the slope here. I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, over 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? And then if I had to write the whole equation out, right? That 6 is right here. All right, let's move on. Okay, so if we were looking at this one here, this one is actually pretty crazy. So if I was to ask you what the slope was, you'd have to really, this one would be kind of crazy, but what if I told you right now, I'm going to give you some values instead. So I'm going to say that this point here, I'm just making these up, but look, it's between 500 and 1,000. What would be in the middle of 500 and 1,000? Wouldn't that be 750? Think about quarters, 25, 50, 75 cents, and $1. Think about it now bigger. 250 here, 500. 500 plus another 250 would be 750, and then 1,000. So I'm going to say this is at 700. So I'm going to say it's 0, 700 is where that point is. All right, I'm kind of guesstimating here, but since these points aren't exact, and I'm going to use this point here, this point is pretty exact. I'm going to use that one and say this is over what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over 5. And up, you tell me, 1,000? Wouldn't this be 1,250? Think about, they're just going by 250s. 1,500 plus another 250 would be 1,750. All right, use your calculator. I want to know, what is the slope of this graph? If you did it properly, this is what it would look like. Now you're going to take away 700 from 1,750. I'm going to get negative 1,050 over negative 5. All right. Then I'm going to divide. If you did it on the calculator, it's going to be 210, I believe. So 210. So my slope is going up 210 every 1. And that is pretty accurate. That's a pretty good estimation, okay? So at this point, I want you guys to, actually, I think I have one more for you. One more. All right, your last problem is right here. I want you to give me the entire equation. What is the entire equation? What's the whole thing going to be? Okay, you can do this. Let's go. You did it properly. Y minus y, x minus x. That means it's going to be 2. Then you're going to plug in. I'm going to do the first point. I'm going to plug in 1. Does 5 equal 2? Only when you add 3. That finishes the puzzle. All right, guys, best of luck. Have a good weekend. Get this done. And I will see you next week for week 9.